All right. Welcome back to the next edition. I'm Kat over here in Hollywood, and that's Vin over there in New York City. And
Great to see you all. Welcome back.
welcome back. Yeah.
Welcome back. All right.
All right. So
Another show. All right. So, what are we doing, Kat? Actually, you told me to watch this movie because you really liked it. So I watched it, and you start. You go ahead. What are we reviewing?
So this time we did something a little different. You know, so far we've been talking about movies we've both had watched way ahead of time that we both really liked. And then this time we came up with, I chose a movie that I really liked that he hadn't seen yet. And and I chose the movie, as you can see from the logo, I chose the movie Whiplash. Right?
Okay. Great.
Now, Whiplash is a movie. It was a recent one. It was a Sundance Film Festival favorite from January 2014. And it came out in wide release in October of 2014. And you know what? I thought it was a really good movie. I thought it was.
Did you see it in the theater?
I did not see it in the theater. I saw it from a recommendation from a coworker of mine.
Okay.
So I work with this guy, and he goes to see all these indie films, right? And most of the time, I think indie films bite balls.
Okay.
And but he's because I'm into music. I really like music, and I know you like music too. Different genres. We don't have any
Absolutely.
discrimination against music.
All types. Good music is good music.
Good music's good music. Good music is something that will last the test of time. That's just what it does.
Exactly. Yeah, I was telling my niece about this recently. I think music is timeless.
Yeah.
How long ago did Beethoven and Chopin and all these guys live? And the music is still great. It lasts forever.
Yeah, you're right. It's like Aretha Franklin will be around forever. Madonna, maybe not.
Maybe not. I mean, no, she'll go down in history for sure. Whether or not you like her music or not, she is definitely an icon, trendsetter, going forward. I mean, all music that's recorded is going to be stored somewhere and go down in history. May not be along the lines of a Beethoven or some of these guys like who am I thinking? A blues player, one of the originals, guitar.
Albert Johnson? Or Robert Johnson?
Robert Johnson.
Robert Johnson, right? Robert Johnson. There is an Albert
Right.
Johnson also. I'm a blues guy myself.
Gotcha. I'm not going to say that Madonna created the pop genre like a Robert Johnson may have started the blues, that type of thing. But she'll go down in history for sure.
Yeah, I mean, but she's only going down. She's not going down in history for great music. She's going down in history for her avant-garde approach to entertainment. She's more
trendsetter. Exactly.
Right. She's
First
more of
woman to bring it to another level.
Right. She was an entertainer. She wasn't a music person. Her voice isn't particularly great. Her songs aren't particularly long-lasting. They got a catchy beat, but she doesn't have a voice, say, like Christina Aguilera or the song catalog of, say, something like the Temptations, or
Right.
the longevity of somebody, say, like the Rolling Stones. The Stones are 70 years old and still packing stadiums. Where Madonna, I don't know. I mean, she's still, I guess, noteworthy, but she's relegated down to, I would say, local clubs or the
she just recently had a world tour. Now we're in 2018. We're in August of 2018. I find it interesting that what happens a lot of times is you'll have an artist specific to music who is super duper popular, and then they kind of die off a little bit. Let's just say they're not as popular, but then as they get older, they'll come back and they'll have like a whole new career. And
see, that
sometimes be even bigger than they were when they first started.
We're digressing from our film, but the only thing I'm going to add to that, before we get back to our film, is that those are people who actually write and play music. Madonna's somebody who goes out there and buys songs. She doesn't sit back and play the music herself. She's not like a Lady Gaga who actually does her own stuff, who can come back and get a new invigoration into a music genre to do something new. Or say like Santana. Santana was big in the 60s, and then he came back with a Supernatural album, 35 years later. But that's all
Right.
Santana. He never
Right.
stopped recording. It's just that his popularity in the mainstream of music was never hot. And people are like, oh, Santana's great. Like, Santana's been great. You know, you
Right.
just didn't know about him because
Right, exactly.
you were 5. You
Right,
know,
right. Exactly.
All right,
So we'll go back. So this
Right.
music in this movie specific to jazz.
Yeah, it's specific to jazz, you know, and it's about a student and a teacher, and it's about a kid who's like dedicated to jazz. Like he wants to be a jazz drummer, you know, one of the great jazz drummers. You know, I can't name any off the top of my head, and I recommend that anybody see this movie. Right. So the plot is this kid is with this. He gets this teacher, right, and the teacher is basically no nonsense. He is completely
tough, super tough.
Yeah, I would say tough. I would say
He's
that.
tough. I mean, slapping around his students and cursing at them, and talking about their families and why their moms left the family. I mean, and he's tough.
You know, it makes me think of you know, does something like that, you know, does that make you stronger or does that make you weaker, you know?
Well, actually, he mentioned that in the movie. The teacher, the student and the teacher, towards the end of the movie, met up and in a bar outside of the school, and you know, in a public setting, so they could, you know, be one-on-one, be on even ground, let's just say, as individuals. And the teacher gave his interpretation of why he was so tough, and the student said that. He said, well, do you think that being so tough will discourage the next, you know, Miles Davis or a Charlie Parker? And the teacher said no, because the next Charlie Parker would not be discouraged. So that was his interpretation, the teacher's interpretation, his opinion on being super tough.
Right. Well, you know, I mean, I think this approach that this teacher's taking, you know, and I hope somebody, you know, actually sees this movie, is like, what did you personally think about his approach to his teaching?
Me?
Yeah.
It was interesting. I thought he was super tough. He obviously knew what he was talking about. I mean, he would tell the students. Now, let's just jump back for a second. Apparently, these students are going to a school in New York City that is the top school. The main character, Andrew, played by Miles Teller, says to this girl that he's interested in that the school is going to, I believe it's called the Schaefer School, is the best music school in the country. Okay, so the students in this school are going to the best school in the country, and I assume that they're hiring the best teachers. The teacher knows exactly what he wants. So he asked these students to play something, let's just say an E note or E chord or whatever. I'm not a music person, and then they play for like 2 seconds and he's like, stop. I mean, he knows exactly what he wants, which is great. I like that. He's obviously a educated guy with music. You know, there's all sorts of different beliefs, opinions on teaching methods, what gets through to people. Some people have a harder approach, softer approach. I think it really matters how the chemistry is between the individuals. I don't think slapping, physically, abusing your students is necessarily the way to go, unless maybe you're a boxer or an MMA fighter.
so you think that when he smacked the student, right? You thought that was abuse, that was going too far.
I think when he smacked him, and then he smacked him again, and then he smacked him again, and then he smacked him again.
Yeah.
You know, it might be going, a little too far. Like I said, unless you're in some different, area of study. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that his methods overall were ineffective. I don't know if this movie was based on a true story. I don't know if it was just based on fiction. I was personally slugged in the gut by a teacher, and it totally discouraged me. And right. I never went back. I was actually playing drums, and I left, and I never went back. Obviously, it wasn't meant to be.
Right.
But like I said, different. What do you think? You think it's okay to slap around your students if a music teacher? I mean, maybe hits them with a trombone. I mean, is that? Tell me what you think.
Well, you know what? I mean, I think that the method of teaching that he does now, it isn't really a fine line, right? Now, I agree that this guy is hard on the psyche all the way around, but he wasn't doing it to be vindictive. He wasn't doing it to be vicious. He was doing it to harden their metal, because to make it in the music industry, to be the best that you can be, there is no room for flaw.
Right.
And if you train yourself that way from the beginning, that there is no room for flaw, and if he's that hard on you and you become that militant about your craft, you will always be the best. You will always be the top of your line, and you will almost do it automatically. It won't even be like a thought to slack off. It won't even be a thought not to, put in the 6 hours of studying you need to put in, or whatever it takes, to be better than the next guy.
Now let's look at that for a second as a general statement or as a blanket statement. Do you think that, and the audience can answer this, in anything that we're learning in life, whatever it is it necessary to be hard like that, or is that just one particular way of accomplishing education?
You know what, I feel that it weeds out the wannabes. It's like, how serious are you about this? But see, the hard part that comes in is that when somebody doesn't know what they're doing and they're just overcompensating because they got a little dick and they're trying to be abusive to people who are underneath them just because they can. Not because they're trying to teach them something, not because they're trying to learn something, but because they're just being an asshole.
And then there's the question: will the next Charlie Parker be the next Charlie Parker, regardless of his teacher's teaching style?
Well, see, that's where it comes up to motivation. At that point, you have to be self-motivated to achieve that status versus being in a conflict relationship.
Right.
But
exactly. It's an interesting debate.
Yeah.
Well,
this is one of the reasons why I like this particular movie, is because of this debate where this kid is like, he refused to cry to his mother, he refused to cry to his father, where his father's like, look, if this guy's abusing you, this kid's like, freaking leave me alone, I can take this, I can take this, I'm going to get through this. And he realized what the guy was doing, but at the same time, he hated his guts.
Right.
But he realized that the guy was consistent in his methods. It wasn't like he was hard on this guy and soft on this guy, and this guy's a teacher's pet. He was hard on every single one of them. Everybody's the same. Don't care. And then he
was a drill instructor.
Yeah,
he was a drill instructor.
Drill instructor. And then you saw glimpses of that. In essence, he really did care. You saw moments of people who went through his program, came out the other side, and then
he showed his humanity when he wasn't in the classroom.
Right. It's like, you made it through. You're now a successful player. You have a family. Hey, how you doing?
Right.
You doing all right? He didn't have to turn.
Nice to see you. Right. He wasn't always a hard ass.
Unless you were in that classroom. Unless you were a student.
It was just his method. Right. It was his teaching method. Exactly.
Right.
And that character, his name was Mr. Fletcher. That was the teacher. Mr. Fletcher was played by a actor. His stage name is J.K. Simmons. And I gotta say, he's a great actor. I've seen him in a bunch of things before. He was in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, as well as he does the Farmers insurance commercials.
He does.
In case anybody wants to know who he is, and he did a great job.
And he even he has a current show on Showtime. I forgot the name of it. I should have looked it up. But the show
he was in some Law and Order stuff. I mean, he's been around a while. He's done a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but this really brought out his acting skill.
Yeah.
So what did you think about the movie overall?
All right. In terms of overall, I thought it was a good movie. Definitely a movie teaching a lesson. Don't quit. There have been plenty of movies about that. It's nothing new. It's great that they put that lesson out there once again. In this particular avenue with respect to musicians. You know, don't quit, keep trying, keep trying. I love that aspect of what they're trying to convey in a movie. The filming, I wasn't thrilled with. I mean, it was okay. It was good. It was definitely above average for sure. There were some ways, some style that I guess the director used that it took me out of it a little bit. I didn't appreciate so much. Specifically, the last scene where they're in Carnegie Hall playing, and the camera is jumping back and forth between the teacher, the conductor, and the student without cutting. They're literally just panning back and forth. I didn't appreciate that method. And then there was a scene where the student is standing in front of Carnegie Hall before he's going to the show. He's looking at Carnegie Hall, famous. I mean, it's Carnegie Hall. You're not getting any more prestige than that. He's standing in front of it, and the camera is focused on him, and Carnegie Hall is in the background, blurry. I mean, and it's the only scene in the movie where they show Carnegie Hall from the outside. Inside, they probably used a studio. Probably wasn't Carnegie Hall. Right. But it's the only time you see Carnegie Hall. How could you not put Carnegie Hall in focus?
Maybe you can. Maybe you can't get the rights to it.
Well, it's Carnegie Hall, so you're not getting away with saying, "Oh, well, you didn't know it was Carnegie Hall, so I'm not paying the rights."
Come on, man! They have an Apple laptop on TV, and they just cover up the Apple logo and be like, "Yeah, you don't know what this is." It's like it's a big silver thing. You got to know what it is.
Yeah, they cover up the logo. Right, but this is Carnegie Hall in New York City.
All right, but you can't read Carnegie Hall. I'm just saying. I'm guessing. I don't know for sure. I'm just guessing. Carnegie Hall. I'm guessing that's why it was blurry. I'm not saying that it's not Carnegie Hall. You know it's Carnegie Hall. I know it's an Apple laptop. Everybody knows what it is, except they start in focus.
The other point I was going to make was, unless it was some artistic, expression that the director did on purpose, that he blurred out Carnegie Hall. Like the student maybe he's in awe of Carnegie Hall, and it's just everything's just overwhelming, and he's standing in front of it, and everything is just kind of blurred out. I don't know. I think I don't know what he was going for. I think Carnegie Hall I would have put in focus. And then you say it was an indie film, and then indie films aren't a lot of actors and extras and stuff like that. So there were only a few characters in this movie, and even the main characters, which were his father, played by Paul Reiser, who I dig a lot. Also, Paul Reiser is great. He didn't have, he only had a few scenes. So the main movie is really this guy, the student Andrew, and he's got to carry the film.
Yeah.
And he did a great job. Let me just say that this guy has been in some other movies. This Miles Teller. He was in this movie called Bleed for This, which he plays boxer Vinny Pazienza. The Divergent movie with Shailene Woodley.
Right, the Divergent movie series, yeah.
Yeah, and Fantastic Four, the 2015 version of Fantastic Four. He played Mr. Fantastic. Yeah, so the guy obviously has talent. The kid, he definitely has talent. He's getting work. And he did a great job. He had to carry the film, and he did. I thought it was good. Directing style, I would have changed a few things. But for the most part, it's good. I would say if you're into jazz at all, if you're a jazz student and you're up and coming, or you're interested in it, I'd say definitely see this movie. It's definitely inspirational.
Yeah. You know what? I have to agree with all you say, but don't see Fantastic Four. It's horrible.
I didn't see it. I can't comment on that.
Yeah, don't see that. Don't see that.
The 2015 version.
I don't think I would see any version of Fantastic Four personally. Okay. Although I've seen every version of Fantastic Four, you're wasting your time and your life. Read the comic book or something.
You know what? I didn't see them, but I did see scenes of the one with Jessica Alba and Chris Evans, and I got to say Michael Chiklis did a good role as Ben the Thing. Mm-hmm. I think he did a good role. Michael Chiklis, he played a detective years ago.
Right. He had his own TV show that got critically acclaimed. Yeah.
Exactly, and he's actually pretty good. So he was good in that.
Right.
But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Good heartfelt story. Keep trying, no matter what. Especially if it's something that you want. You know, if you're just going to work and you hate what you're doing or something, you may want to try a different avenue. But you know, that's how you're gonna find out what you really want to do. But if you're really into something, you know, if you really enjoy it, whatever, or want something, and you think you might be good at it, hey, keep trying.
You know,
Definitely keep trying.
it's a drive. You know, I mean, it's almost, you know, like anything else. You got to want it. You know, and how badly do you want it? Yeah. You know, what do you want to go through? Who are you willing to learn from? You know, and I think one thing about learning is, you know, you can learn something from just about anybody. But you know what? You got to be receptive to it. You can't just shut people out and be like, "Oh, this guy's nothing to say." You know, it's just like stand
Right.
around, listen to it for real, and then pick out what you can learn and what you can't learn, and you know, and bide your time. You know, I
Right.
mean, I've had
Absolutely.
this many times in my life. You know, and my father, I had one job that I hated one time. You know, this is a side note. And I was going to quit the job. You know, my father says I need to stay at the job. And I'm like, why did I stay at this job? I hate this job. It sucks. I don't want to go there any day. He's like, there's something to learn here. And what you need to do is you need to learn it. Once you learn it, you can quit. And I'm like, who are you? Kung Fu from freaking,
Right.
you know?
Master. Yeah.
Yeah. You know?
Kane. Yeah.
Right. You know, Mike Gator, you're the
Exactly.
freaking, the
Yeah.
Buddha
Mr.
master or whatever.
Miyagi.
Yeah. I'm like, what the F is this shit? But I listened to him. You know what? And I
He
did
was
learn
right.
something. Yeah, he
Right.
was right.
Okay.
He was right.
Right. Right.
But once I did, man, I was out of there in a flash, you know. But
Right.
in the long run, it helped me with, you know, other aspects of my life once I realized what the lesson there to be
Right.
learned was.
Here's another lesson I thought the movie conveyed really well. That if you are hell bent on something, if you really have a love for something, and it's not geared towards people. And what I mean is that what they did in this movie was he wanted to be a musician. They pointed out in a great way that you may need to give up your uh, interaction, how much you're going to deal with people. So what they did was he was interested in this girl and he started seeing her a little bit. And then when he realized that he was going to have to put all of his energy into doing his music, he gave up the girl. I mean, he pulled her aside and said, "Look, you're going to be a distraction in my life." And she was heartbroken, and he gave her up. You know, and that's happened a lot. I've heard of this before. Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he was in the 70s, when he was a bodybuilder, and he was doing very, very, very well. Now, the story, you know, I may have a couple of the facts wrong, but the main lesson is he got a call from his mom. Now, Arnold Schwarzenegger was from Austria. He got a call from his mom where his father was either sick or dying, and said, "You got to come home." And he's like, "Mom, I can't. I'm involved in this," which I think he was training for the Olympia, or it could have been a movie role, whatever it was. It was something not people related, and it certainly had nothing to do with his immediate family. And he
Right.
didn't go home.
It was almost like a one shot deal. I got to do it this time. You know, I don't know if I'll get another
Yeah.
opportunity, and you know,
He's like,
you
I
had to make
have
the
to
sacrifice.
concentrate on this. Exactly. And he didn't go home. And I think his mom was heartbroken. You know, maybe she got over it. Maybe she understood. But the movie pointed that out well, that you may need to give up certain things in your life, which you will, absolutely, to excel elsewhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's compromises. There's tons of compromises, trade-offs, and the movie. And he called her again later on in the movie. You know, he's called her back and said, "Hey, do you want to hang out?" She's like, "Well, you know, I got a boyfriend, blah blah blah." And he's like, "I think you realize, you know, I gave this up to pursue this."
It could have been his key to happiness later on after jazz is over. But you know,
Right.
you got to do it. And I
never
think
know.
you're right. It did point this out. You know, and I've heard from several people who've been dedicated in their particular fields is that, you know what, sometimes you do got to cut it off. Can't go out, can't hang out with your friends. Matter of fact, you can't spend any money. You can't, if you want it bad enough, you're gonna do what it takes. You know, F everybody else. You know, and it's not like F everybody else
Right.
in a bad way. It's just
Right.
that hey man, I'm focused on this now. If you're my buddy or my friend or whatever, you're gonna let me focus on this. When I get back to you, you're not gonna, be butthurt over, me disappearing for 4 years. Like, yo, dude, you disappeared for 4 years. But I'm like, yeah, but I'm flying in a helicopter. What, are you gonna be upset about this?
Right.
You know,
and even if you're not flying in a helicopter, it's what you have to do. It's your life. You have to choose the path you have to choose. You don't want to screw over people.
No, I'm not saying screw people over. I'm not saying that. Right. It's just that I'm like, look, I can't do the stuff that you're doing. I can no longer do, and coming to them honestly and being like, look, I got to go do this, and it's like,
exactly.
If you're a real friend, you'd be like, look, I understand. More power to you. Do something just to help support them. And whether they become successful in a grander sense, or they just become successful or more fulfilled within themselves, you should be happy for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And more often than not, paths will diverge. I mean, that's just the way it is, the way the matrix is set up. There's so many different variables out there, that things are going to change. Things change. That's it.
Things do change.
Yeah.
So like in the end, it comes out that some other whiny kid ends up telling on the teacher, and they end up busting him and taking him out of the teacher's role in this movie. This is this is basically one of the plot twists, because some kid was crying that he didn't get a trophy. I mean, that's what I felt it was like, and and I'm like, all right, so they fired him. Now this guy, what his whole life was teaching these kids and making them the best musicians possible, is gone. It's just gone. His life is basically the hell that he put the students through. It's almost like a role reversal, because the students go on, and this guy is at the end of his career per se, and all that he's worked for is just in ashes. But because of his character, he remains steadfast that I've done nothing wrong.
Right.
In personality, and he just rolls with the punches.
Okay, here's actually something. Oh, no, go ahead.
But he kind of rolls with the punches, through this plot line. And then the student meets up with him a lot later on. I don't want to give the whole thing away, even though I know this is a review. But, I mean, this is like how much they packed into this movie about, the evolution of this particular story. And, and I know we concentrated more on the first half and then, what was going on. But the second half ends up being, just as important. And I don't think without the first part of this, with him being tough on Andrew as the student, Andrew wouldn't have been able to do what he did at the end, because he was no longer afraid. It's like, I'm going to do this no matter what.
Okay, good.
Sink or swim.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. He did it his way. He's like, I'm doing it my way, and that's it. And I think the reason, now I'm gonna say this: if anybody is concerned about spoiler alerts or whatever, turn this off now. Anybody who's not concerned, like myself, see, I don't care about spoiler alerts. I used to ask people all the time about movies. They'd be like, "Oh, okay, tell me about this movie," and they'd be like, "Well, I don't want to tell you. I don't want to ruin it." No, tell me about the movie. I'm gonna go see it anyway if I decide to see it. It doesn't spoil it for me, so I'm just gonna say this right here. So, and I wanted to ask you about this, Kat. At the end of the movie, or towards the end of the movie, the teacher comes up to Andrew and he says, "I know it was you," or he says to him at the last scene in Carnegie Hall, "I know it was you," and he changes the music around on him, and Andrew doesn't know what to play. Do you think that the teacher did that to screw the kid over, because they knew that there were people in the audience that were there, like scouts basically, and that if they saw this kid screw up, that he'd never work again? Or do you think he did it to push him hard, basically like throwing the cymbal at Charlie Parker's head to push him to see if he would rise to the occasion?
Nah,
what do you think?
He did it to completely screw him.
He did it to screw him.
Did it absolutely to screw him.
Okay, and the kid rose to the occasion on his own.
The kid rose to the occasion because of what he did in the beginning,
Because of what he did, right? But he rose to the occasion. The teacher was trying to screw him over.
Absolutely.
Because the student got him fired.
Yes, absolutely. He was trying to screw him over. He was trying to embarrass him. He was trying to intimidate him. He was trying to scare him. And the whole idea about the trial by fire is just like, you look at somebody and it's just like, when you look over an abyss, the only person staring back at you is you, and at that point,
facing your own fears.
Yeah, sink or swim. It doesn't matter. It's just like, I'm this good. You know, I've been
Right.
practicing 6 hours every day. There's nothing you can do that can intimidate me. You know, and
Right.
that's standing up to confidence of no matter how many people come at you and keep telling you can't do something, you can't do something, you can't do something. Oh, this is a problem, that's a problem. You don't care. You just you go up the middle. You know, you take all the hits and you go up the middle, and then you come out the other side. And you come out a better person, a stronger person.
And you learn something either way. For better or for worse, you learn something.
You learn something either way. You know, and
Right.
a lot of times when stuff like this happens, you know, you don't get a second at bat. You know, sometimes you do. You know, sometimes you might get 2 or 3 turns at bat, you know,
Right,
but the
right.
object is never give up. But you know what? He was trying to screw him, and people are going to try to screw you your whole life. I know this, you know, you might not even know the person they're trying to screw you. But if you're on top of your game and on top of your stuff, it's like, oh, he threw me a curve, and what?
That's true. Anybody who's watching this and who's on a computer knows that you're going to try to get screwed. Because I'm telling you, since they came out, when they came out with computers and they started saying, oh, there's bugs and malware and software, I never understood this. It was like, okay, people create these bugs and they sit home and they go, he, I'm going to mess someone up. And, you know, you don't even see who you're messing up. You're just messing up a whole bunch of people's computers. So, yeah.
Just cause, right.
Just cause, right. So, yeah, anyone who's watching this and messes with a computer, no, you might get screwed over by someone you don't even know.
Mm-hmm. No,
Yep.
you make a good point there. You know, it's like for those people, I just think they're assholes. You know, for these people, it's more of a more intimate thing. You know, and your workplace
Right.
is a more intimate thing.
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
But I mean, I think he tried to screw him over. He tried to
Tried to
dog
screw
him
him.
out.
Okay.
And
Right.
and because of, you know, his earlier teaching, that the kid actually learned. I mean, it might have taken him a little while to process what was going on, and he still didn't appreciate it. I don't think he appreciated the lessons anywhere through. I believe that the student thought the teacher was an asshole all the way. Even though he
Right.
saw glimpses of his humanity, he was just like,
Right.
this guy's still a jerk off. I don't care what you say. You know?
Right. Yeah. Although he did go to see him in the bar at the end when he was walking by after the teacher got fired.
He happened to see him in a bar.
But he didn't have to go in and see him. He didn't go just walk into a bar. He was walking by the bar and he saw the guy's name on like a chalkboard outside, and he's like, "Oh, he's in here." And he went inside to go and see him.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't have to. He could have said, "Oh, that guy's a dick," you know. I'm not going to go see him. But he did. He went in to see him.
Because later on he realized, you know what I think this is almost like. It's like you know, when a parent has to be a parent can't always be a friend, and they're telling somebody like, look, you got to do it this way, and the kid is like, you know, in his head going, fuck you motherfucker, like under his breath, or like tell you to clean your room or whatever it is that you know, as a child you don't understand. But you know, when you turn 30, you'd be like, you know, you come back to your parent and be like, you remember that day when you told me that thing? Yeah, I kind of appreciate it now. At the time, I figured I was going to burn the house down. But I realize now, you know, you were trying to do something in my best interest, and I was too naive to understand it at the time.
Right. I mean, and the movie ends at the right after the performance at Carnegie Hall, so we don't know if, you know, the kid learned any lessons or whatever. We don't see any of that. We just know that he rose to the occasion and he put on a great performance.
This is true.
So,
good movie. So do you have anything else to add there, Evan?
No, I'd say, like I said, if you're a music enthusiast, and especially if you're a jazz enthusiast, and on top of that, if you're a drummer, you know, definitely go and see this. It's a decent movie. There are some decent drumming scenes. The main character, Andrew, played by Miles Teller, did a great job, as well as the teacher, J.K. Simmons. They did a great job. It's an inspiring movie. Definitely a few lessons to learn. Check it out. Why not if you get a chance? Whiplash. Was it 2014?
2014.
2014. So yeah, check it out.
All right. I think that's gonna do it for us today. You know, I think we had a good verbal back and forth here about this movie. It was the first time we've seen it. It's been a favorite of mine for a while. I think this is a great movie to see. I know it's not an action film, but it's a great movie to see on a Friday or Saturday night. I would recommend this for older children, somewhere in ages of like 15 and up, because of, you need to pay attention to the movie. You cannot not pay attention, because it all is relevant. The whole
Right.
storyline is relevant. And they need to be able to follow the plot line. If you're not, you'll just get bored.
Right. I agree.
So, I guess from New York to LA, this is Cat over here.
And this has been over here in New York.
And we are the next edition.
See y'all.